Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about something, it's sort of a little bit historical, so you're going to get a little bit of history you might not have known about, especially if you're not from the Great Plains. But there's something really fucking cool in the Great Plains that you might not know about that kind of actually did influence the Wizard of Oz. And these are Main Street brick roads. Now you're scratching your head. What the fuck did I just say? Brick roads? That's the Wizard of Oz. Yes, I said the Wizard of Oz. No, in Kansas specifically, there are a lot of these old, mostly abandoned, half living, half dead, small towns, rural towns, farm communities out in the middle of fuck all, nowhere, that you go, that you drive around town, 1st Street, 2nd Avenue, etc. They've got your standard pavement or your concrete roads like you're used to. Dirt roads, if they don't have the money to pave them. Gravel roads in some cases. But once you get to downtown, once you get to Main Street, the roads are made out of brick. Not the sidewalks. Not brick, like planter boxes in the middle of in the median, with trees growing out of them. No, I mean you're driving your car on a brick road. Or walking on the brick road because there's no cars, because it's a small dead-ass town in the middle of fuck all nowhere. Why does Kansas, of all places, and other small rural communities in the Great Plains, have brick roads? Why wouldn't they have pavement, or concrete, or asphalt, or something more economical? Well, it goes back to the Great Depression. You see, people in Kansas got fucked hard during the Great Depression. Go watch The Grapes of Wrath and you'll understand what I'm talking about. The Dust Bowl decimated the state. There was no economy in Kansas during the Dust Bowl, during the Great Depression. Everybody fled the state. There were no casinos. There was no industry to speak of in Kansas. We had oil, but oil was not something people could afford during the Depression because they lost their farms and their houses and their livelihood. Your drugstores closed up shop. Your general stores were struggling. Kansas got hit fucking hella hard. Harder than any other state during the Great Depression. So the state of Kansas, and the various counties and cities came up with a plan to put people to work. Civil engineering. Now their big, massive civil engineering projects were lakes, carving out rivers and making man-made lakes. This would put people to work. Now yes, there were big, heavy machinery involved. People were out there driving dump trucks and dirt movers and, big steam engines and stuff like that. But there were a lot of people hired, like day workers, that were handed a shovel, even though it had no impact on they would just have thousands of people out there with a shovel, shoveling dirt all day long, just so they could give them 5 cents a day or whatever the fucking wage was, so they could fucking feed their kids. They lost their farms. If they owned a business, they lost their business. So what did they do? The state of Kansas invested heavily in civil engineering projects. One of the other civil engineering projects they invested in was bridges. People might not know this because they think of Kansas as flyover country. There's no mountains. But Kansas is actually pretty diverse ecologically. It is the Great Plains, so it's got a lot of fucking nothing. Wheat fields, corn fields, sunflower fields. Yeah, a lot of fucking nothing. But you know what else it has? A lot of waterways. Rivers, creeks, lakes, ponds, the works. The Great Flood of 94 totally left the state nearly entirely underwater. Kansas is a very heavy rain state. By the way, it's also a heavy tornado state. So the second civil engineering project they heavily invested in during the Great Depression were building bridges. Small bridges over creeks, over rivers, etc., so that they could have commerce flowing through the state. The third massive civil engineering project they invested in, even though this was before the Interstate Highway Act, they invested tremendously in paving roads. Even though a lot of rural roads were still dirt or gravel, they paved a lot of roads that they were trying to connect the small communities to the urban centers, Salina, Topeka, Grand Junction, etc. And then, because they were still desperate, they also paid day workers to go out. They tore up their main streets. They took the heavy machinery and they tore up the pavement. And they would hire day workers to go out there by hand and just set bricks. Set bricks. And they made brick roads all over Kansas, the main streets. They did this because they just needed to give people jobs so they could buy a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk and maybe some diapers for the baby. This was how the hardworking, make-do people of rural Kansas pulled up their bootstraps and survived the hardest economic downturn in U.S. history. And these brick roads are there still to this day as a historical artifact and a relic of a time where people in the state that was the most devastated by the Great Depression somehow survived the hardest time economically. And that's why there are brick roads in the state of Kansas. Now, I know the yellow brick road in the Wizard of Oz predates the Great Depression. But the movie, The Wizard of Oz, MGM, Dorothy, the Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the one I'm talking about, the famous MGM Wizard of Oz movie, was made during the Depression. And that heavily inspired these small towns to say, hey, let's pave our roads with brick roads. Because it was a way for them to because they could pay people, can keep them working regularly for longer periods of time, manually, physically, personally, humans placing brick roads with their bricks one at a time with their bare hands. It wasn't economical for the cities and the state, but it was something that they could keep their people working. And it worked because, World War II happened, and then the baby boom afterwards, and then boom, we're in the industrial period. But Kansas managed to survive, and yeah, they benefited from the industrial period. Topeka and Wichita are major manufacturing hubs of aircraft, especially military aircraft. There's a lot of military bases in Kansas. There's a lot of oil production in Kansas. Kansas is a lot more diverse ecologically than people realize, and it's also a lot more diverse industrially than people realize. Because most people think Kansas and they think of wheat fields or cornfields for some reason. Corn is Nebraska, y'all. We don't grow corn in Kansas. We grow wheat and some corn, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. But a lot of sunflowers, a lot of wheat. Corn that's Nebraska. Stay the fuck out of Nebraska. If you grew up in Kansas like I did for the most part, in previous videos I said I grew up in Nevada. Look, I moved around a lot. From like 14 on, I grew up in Nevada. From like baby till 12, I lived in Kansas. So, both states have a special place in my heart. But I'm damn proud of the people that pulled together as a community and created these civil engineering projects just so people could fucking survive the goddamn depression. We don't do shit like that anymore. Now we just beg the billionaires to bail us out, and they don't. So, yay capitalism.